What is one thing that every defensive firearm should have in common? A weapon-mounted light. So let's try it out. Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical. Today's video is all about something that I believe to be necessary on any defensive firearm, especially something that you're going to use for home defense, and that is a weapon-mounted light. As you can see, I've got lights mounted on all of my ARs and on my home defense pistol. And so today we are going to compare some of these lights because I believe that I've found the one that I will be using from now on most of my builds. But before we get started, I'd like to thank everyone that's subscribed to the channel, thank our Patreons, and yeah, let's get going. So obviously it's daytime out here, so I can't really test the capabilities of my new Streamlight that I put on my AR9, but I still want to test how well it holds up under recoil. Still works. So if you've been following the channel at all, you know that I just finished building this Aero Precision EPC9, and I wasn't sure if I was going to kit it out in the same ways that I have with my other ARs, but if you know me at all, you know that I had to. And that means, obviously optic, backup irons, foregrip of some kind, and a weapon-mounted light. Now, I wanted to find the right light for this build, and as much as I think this light is ridiculously big for such a small platform, I'm very impressed with the Streamlight HL-X rail mount series. And so that's what prompted this video. And, I've tried a lot of different lights, especially when I first got into this whole thing. I kind of tried to go with budget options, but what I've found is that the Streamlight option with the Arasaka offset mount was not a whole lot more than the Olight that I put on my first AR, but it is a whole lot better. And so that's why we're going to do this comparison. The whole reason I went with Streamlight is because Streamlight is what I put on my defensive pistol, the TR-1 HL, TLR-1 HL, and this is a fantastic light. It is brighter than any of my other AR lights that I've bought, and so that's what got me into Streamlight in the first place. And now I just wish that that's what I'd gotten on all of these. And we're going to compare the light output on all these just so that you guys can see what I mean. But it also has to do with the mounting system. There's lots of factors that make a good home defense light or a good weapon mounted light. And I do believe that if you're going to have a firearm that could ever be used for home defense, you need a light on it, because half of the time on this planet is nighttime. Things happen in the dark. Generally, if a criminal is going to come try to break into your home, do some harm to you or your family, there's a good chance that it's going to be at night, and you need positive target identification, because if you hear that bump in the night, you do not want to send a bullet into something that you shouldn't be sending a bullet into. So you have to be able to identify your target before you take your shot. And a white light is necessary for that. It just is. I know that there's a lot of people out there that believe that a light can give away your position, but there's ways to use it correctly. You don't have to just turn the light on and keep it on. They have this thing called momentary, where you can just click it on and off, and you can use your support hand on a pistol to do that and still have your trigger finger available to work. And on something like a system like this, same thing. You can have your momentary on or just click it on, depending on how you want to use it. So if you guys have been following the channel, You know, I just finished building this AR-9, it's Aero Precision EPC-9, and I finally got it all kitted out with the light, the foregrip, everything else. So I thought it would be a good idea to do a video on lights. So we're going to be comparing 4 different lights today. The first one is the Olight Odin Mini. You can get this for around 130 bucks. It does have a nice M-LOK mounting solution, which I do really like a lot. It is fairly low profile and tucks right into the rail pretty nicely. And it comes with your pressure pad. And it has multiple modes where you can just hold it temporary on. You can click it to have it stay on. And it's not a bad light by any means. It also has some really cool features. This tail cap comes off and it's rechargeable with a magnetic charger. That's a pretty nice feature to have there. The next light is going to be this one. This is a Crimson Trace, and yes, it is painted, so you can't really tell what it is anymore, but it is a Crimson Trace. I bought this one specifically because of the mounting solution for the pressure pad, being as the rail on this particular gun has a cutout here and no Picatinny to mount your pressure pad to. And so that was the whole reasoning behind buying this light. And as much as it's probably not my favorite light out of these, it has worked very well and stood up to tons and tons of rounds. The next light after that, again, is going to be the Streamlight TLR-1 HL, which is a very impressive pistol light. I recommend it to anybody. And of course, what prompted this video, the Streamlight HL-X. So let's go up close and look at each of these for a second. And then we're going to shut off the lights and actually compare the output of each of them. So let's start here with the pistol light. This is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL, and this is the light that made me decide to get a Streamlight on my next weapon-mounted light purchase. What I really like about this, it comes with different keys for different rails. There's a specific one for this M&P, which is really nice. HL. So it's got a very high output. I think it's around 1,000 lumens if I remember correctly. And what I really like about it is the way that it's actuated. So with your strong side, if you're right-handed, I'm actually left-handed, but I shoot right-handed. You push up for a momentary on, down for, to keep it on, push twice to go into strobe mode, and you can push up, down, and keep it on strobe mode if you want. And then because this thing swivels, it's the exact opposite on the other side if you're using your weak side hand. So push down for momentary so you can control that light while still having your finger on the trigger if you need to, or up for constant on, and then pretty easy to click that off with your thumb if you have to. And I'm really impressed with this light. I had a different light on a different pistol that really compared to this was not impressive, but I have sold that since. So TLR-1 HL, I highly recommend it. Now, let's get into the rifle lights. So first up is going to be the first rifle light that I purchased, which is the Odin Mini from Olight. And yes, I know a lot of people talk bad about Olight because in the past, some of them have exploded. I do believe they have fixed that issue, and mine has obviously never exploded. And I've had this longer than any of these other ones, and it's done just fine. As you can see, I have it put as far out on the front of my M-LOK rail as possible, and so it gets hit with a ton of muzzle blast from the Strike Industries J-Comp V2, and as you can see, still works just fine. So it is held up to plenty of abuse, and it's got some features that I really do like about it. For one thing, it comes with an M-LOK rail mount, which is really nice. A lot of these lights that you can find only come with a Picatinny rail mount. And if, like most people these days, run an M-LOK rail because you want something thin and sleek, you don't want to have to add a Picatinny rail section in order to mount your light. So I really do like that it came with the M-LOK mounting solution. This has a little lock right here. You can unlock it and the thing slides right out, which is really nice, and you keep your M-LOK mount on the gun. It also, this just comes right off like that, and then your charger hooks onto the back of that for charging it. And so that's a nice feature as well. It is rechargeable. You don't have to constantly buy batteries. I also do like the way that the pressure pad mounts. It comes with the the Picatinny mount for your pressure pad. So really, everything comes all together in one package. You don't have to purchase anything else to make it work, and that's really nice. It says that it has a 1,250 lumen output, but that doesn't last very long, and you can see that once you start running the light. It starts off really bright, and then dims out a little bit to save power, which is perfectly fine. 1250 lumens is very, very bright. And so even if it's running at less than that, it's not so bad. Here you can see all that kind of stuff. It is waterproof. And the other thing I like about it is that it's kind of small and low profile, which is good as well. So honestly, I'm not sure I would listen to what everyone says about Olight being such a bad thing. I've actually had really good luck with this light, and I like it a lot. Let's go on to the next one. Next, we've got the Crimson Trace Complete Focus. And believe it or not, this one actually took the most amount of research before I decided what to get, because I needed a mounting solution for the pressure pad that worked on this specific M-LOK rail that has the Picatinny cut out in the middle of it. So I needed something that didn't just mount to a Picatinny rail. And the cool thing about this one is that it has a 3M adhesive strip underneath this pressure pad, and then it has these straps that go around that serve a couple of purposes. For one, they hold it on, so that, 2 is 1, 1 is none, as far as you're not only relying on that adhesive strip, but also they do a great job at managing your cable so that, because that's a big thing with lights, is you don't want cables and stuff to get caught on things. And so you don't have to use any zip ties or anything like that. These Velcro straps help manage those cables. This one also did come with an M-LOK mount, although it is very bulky. But you can see the mount for that. It does mount direct to M-LOK or also to Keymod if that's what you're running. Now I know that Keymod is less and less popular these days. M-LOK has kind of won the Keymod versus M-LOK war, but it will mount to either one. Now this light doesn't have quite as much output as some of those others, but it's not bad at all. 900 lumen peak output, lasts for an hour and 25 minutes. And again, I have put tons and tons of rounds through this thing, and most of which without this oppressor blast forwarding device on. And again, you can see I have the light mounted as far forward as possible to not have any shadow on the throw. So it gets tons of blast from my muzzle device, Strike Industries King Comp there, and keeps running just fine. The one issue I do have with that, as you can see, it does get covered with carbon every time I go to the range. And so then when I clean this gun, I end up having to clean that lens a lot, but not a huge deal. Just something else I got to clean when I'm cleaning the gun anyway. Let's move on to what I believe is my favorite one yet. So this is the Streamlight Protac HL-X. And it is huge, especially for such a small AR here. This is a 7.3-inch M-LOK handguard. I didn't put this one out quite as far as the others because it would have been past the end of the muzzle device. And it's still, where I mounted it there, is definitely getting some of that blast from the VG6 Gamma 9mm break. I cleaned this gun last night, and I did have to clean that lens. But some of the things about this light that I really like, so the mounting solution for your pressure pad on this one actually has channels here that you can run your cable through. So you don't really have to use zip ties or anything like that if you don't want to, although it does come with those zip ties. It also comes with a 3M adhesive strip, kind of like the Crimson Trace did, although I didn't need to use it because I used the Picatinny mount. One thing about this light is it only comes with a Picatinny mount for the light itself. So if you do want to adapt it to M-LOK, you're going to have to buy some other mount, or at least use an M-LOK, rail adapter. What I went with was the Arisaka Defense offset mount, and this thing is awesome. It's not cheap by any means, but from what you can see there, it gets it nice and close into the rail. It's actually got 3 different places that you can mount it, up or down, depending on your rail, to make sure that it works and that it has clearance with everything else, but still gets in there as tight as possible. This is the light I will be using on my future builds, especially with this Arisaka mount. I just really like it, and it wasn't much more expensive than either of the previous lights that we've discussed. It also has the same kind of momentary on, or a button for constant on, or double click it and you get that strobe feature. So very nice, has all the features, and with the Arisaka mounts in there nice and tight. So now let's get up here and test these lights out and see which ones actually have the highest output. So obviously I couldn't really test out these lights at the range in the daytime. I could test obviously how well they hold up to recoil and muzzle blast and all that type of thing. But as far as the actual light output, how well you'll be able to see in the dark, we're gonna have to do that in here right now. So first, we're gonna start with the pistol light. This is the Streamlight TLR-1 HL. Nice and bright. So the next one we're gonna compare is the Olight. Not bad, not bad. So this might not be fair because, as you can see, there is some carbon on the lens that I haven't cleaned yet, but Crimson Trace. Pretty decent. And my favorite of the bunch, the Protac HL-X. And that is extremely bright. So as you can see, out of all of those, the 2 Streamlights are the brightest. Even this pistol light is a little bit brighter than the Olight and the Crimson Trace, but the HL-X is the very brightest out of all of them. And so I'm really impressed with this light. So I got the Streamlight HL-X, which comes with a Picatinny mount. But if you want to get it tight into the rail like that, this Arisaka offset M-LOK mount is fantastic. So I've actually had very good luck with all of these lights. I've been running both the Olight and the Crimson Trace for a long time. I've put a ton of rounds through them and have really had 0 issues whatsoever. They continue to work every time that I hit that pressure pad, and they work just fine. But, Streamlight has a little bit better of a reputation, and it really doesn't cost hardly anything more than these. Now, there's a little bit of an extra cost because for like this HL-X, if you want to mount it direct to M-LOK, you're going to have to buy another mount, and this Arisaka mount is not cheap. It's about $45–50 just for a piece of aluminum with a couple screws. But it really does make all the difference if you want to be able to mount it just like that instead of having it hang way off the side on an extra Picatinny rail. So I do recommend the Arisaka mount. There are some like cheap knockoff versions that you might see on Amazon. From what I've seen and from what I've heard from the reviews, they really are not worth it. It's worth just spending a little bit of extra. And if there's one thing I've learned about firearm accessories, if you go with the cheap knockoff, it's going to fail you eventually, and you're going to have to buy the good one anyway, costing you the price of what you should have bought in the first place, plus the price of the cheap knockoff, and the headache of having to replace it and go through all that. So you might as well just buy once, cry once. It's something that I've said over and over on this channel, and a lesson that I've had to learn myself. So that is why I went with the actual brand name Arisaka mount, why I'm now going with Streamlight versus, Crimson Trace or Olight or any of these other things. Now, there are higher tier lights, absolutely. You've got Mod Light, you've got Arisaka Defense, you've got a lot of really good things, Surefire, but they're going to cost you a lot more. And in my experience, which I don't have a lot of experience with some of those higher tier lights just yet, this Streamlight seems to do the job just fine for a price that's barely more than some of the lower tier options. So this is what I recommend at this point, and I think you'll be really happy with it. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Please share this with friends of yours that might be interested in this type of content. And please leave me a comment on what lights you run, pistol and rifle lights. I would love to hear your opinions on any of these ones that we compared today, but also any of the other ones that I don't have experience with yet. I'm always open to learning, and I appreciate those kind of comments from you guys. I read every one of them, and I respond to every one of them. Before you leave, or after this video is over, check out down below. I have an Amazon affiliate link where you can buy this light and this Arisaka mount. In fact, you can also get the Olight there. You can get this light. All of these lights are available on Amazon at generally the best price you can find them at usually. So I'll leave a link for that. If you click on that link and you buy any of these lights or anything else, gives my channel a little kickback. Doesn't cost you anything extra. So I would really appreciate that. I've also got a link to my Patreon down below. If you join the Patreon, you will have access to all the content that we've ever put out, and that is the easiest way to support the channel. So from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.